Los Angeles is a city that knows how to make a murder famous. The helicopter shot, yellow tape, a grieving family, a face splashed across every screen. But here's the part that's been sitting heavy with me. For every killing that becomes a citywide story, how many others become background noise before the blood is even dried? That question sits at the heart of Ghettoside, a true story of murder in America, by veteran Los Angeles Times reporter Jill Leovy. NPR interviewed Leovy about the book back in 2015, but honestly, the conversation doesn't feel old. It feels like something Los Angeles is still being forced to answer. In 2007, Leovy launched a Homicide Report with a simple yet radical idea: document every homicide in Los Angeles County, all 845 of them that year alone. Not just the celebrity cases, not only the shocking ones. Every victim would be given space. Because newsrooms usually chase what appears unfamiliar or unusual. A famous name, wealthy neighborhood, a bizarre circumstance. Meanwhile, killings in South LA, particularly those involving young black men, can be treated as expected. The words gang-related get attached. The story gets reduced to a few lines, and everybody moves on. But think about how really strange that is. There is no such thing as a routine murder. There is nothing routine about a mother learning that her son is never coming home. Nothing routine about an empty bedroom. Nothing routine about a family waiting years for a phone call that may never come. In one moment, Leovy described a detective returned a murdered young man's shoes to his mother. She pressed one of them to her face, hoping to catch what remained of her son's scent, and then she collapsed. That's what gets lost when a human life becomes one more statistic. The grief doesn't disappear when the news cameras leave. In many cases, it's when it really begins. Ghettoside centers largely on the murder of 18-year-old Bryant Tennelle, the son of an LAPD detective. Bryant wasn't in a gang. He had no criminal record. His case was eventually taken on by Detective John Skaggs, whose relentlessness became a major part of the book. But Bryant's story also exposes a question we shouldn't avoid. Why does a victim have to pass some kind of respectability test before the public decides his death matters? A person does not become less murdered because his life was complicated. His mother does not grieve less because somebody labeled the case gang-related. And then there are the witnesses. People love to ask, why won't the community speak up? That question sounds very different when you're not the one who has to go back to the same street after talking to police. Leovy documented intimidation that could be as subtle as a hard stare or as terrifying as men circling a witness's home and pounding on the windows at night. Even relocation assistance was often little more than help with moving costs in the first month's rent. That is not a new life. It does not protect the grandparents, siblings, and cousins who remain behind. Sometimes silence isn't indifference. Sometimes it's survival. And this is where Ghettoside presents a contradiction that people still struggle to understand. A neighborhood can be over-policed and underprotected at the same time. Residents can be stopped, searched, and questioned over minor offenses while the person who killed somebody down the street remains free and clear. Too much of the wrong kind of policing, and not enough of the policing families are begging for. In the period Leovy examined, roughly 4 out of every 10 homicides involving black male victims were cleared by arrest. Detectives in South LA were carrying heavy caseloads, buying some of their own equipment, and working inside a system that didn't always treat homicide investigation like the urgent public service it is. And when killers repeatedly get away with killing, the damage spreads. To the killer, it says, you can do this again. To the witness, it says, you're on your own. To the family, it says, your loss is not urgent. And to the neighborhood, it says, some lives require less justice than others. That is how revenge begins filling the space where justice should have been. Young men leave funerals carrying grief, anger, and the belief that nobody is coming to protect them. One unresolved killing can become the beginning of another. Ghettoside doesn't fit neatly into the comfortable political slogan. It is not an argument for more harassment, more indiscriminate stops, or ignoring police abuse. It asks for something more difficult: less aimless enforcement and more focused, competent, accountable work against serious violence. Protect witnesses. Give detectives the time and resources to do the job. Keep families informed. Treat every homicide like solving it actually matters. And the media has to look in the mirror too. If we only learn the victim's name when the circumstances are sensational enough to entertain us, then we are helping decide whose grief becomes visible and whose grief gets buried with them. Los Angeles should never become so accustomed to death that murder turns into the scenery. So the question isn't, why are these murders invisible? The harder question is, who benefits when we stop looking? For more stories that refuse to let Los Angeles and its people become invisible, follow Culture Campus on all platforms and subscribe to Culture Campus Network on YouTube. Thanks for watching.